educational models. And today we are privileged to have with us Dr. Irfan Chaudhary. Dr. Irfan Chaudhary is a PhD in electrical engineering from MIT. He's an associate professor of electrical engineering at UET Lahore. He has also done his BSc and MSc from MIT. And MAKTAB actually is an experimental, innovative school aiming to nurture the future leaders of Pakistan. This was founded in 2015. It's a fruit of passion. Since the school is very different. It's very different from the conservative academic space, and Dr. Irfan Chaudhary will talk more about it. It's a very interesting, very innovative way of education provision. Over to you, Dr. Saab. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking out time to be with us in this evening. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So as Dr. Saiba has already said, it's an experimental school. I really love the poster on the left because it sort of really speaks to what MAKTAB is all about. So you have all these names of the people that really in a different world ought to have been MAKTAB graduates. But so the title is Ideals and Realities. I steal from obviously Abdul Salam Saab. His book title was Ideals and Realities. In a very small way, we are also trying to search for our ideals, and the realities are quite harsh. So let's start. So it was actually established in 2012, and it ran for about 3 months. There's a long story, a 2-room school run for 3 months and was closed down, and then restarted actually in 2015 after establishing the new campus. And now the reality was that there was never a business plan. So we started the school with no idea of what we were going to get into. So it was only ideals, no realities, no business plan. And I actually think that this was the only way to go forward. If I actually know what I know now, I would have told my self 8 years back, don't be so stupid, don't do this. So not having a business plan was maybe a blessing in disguise, otherwise MAKTAB would not have happened. So as already stated, MAKTAB'S vision is to nurture the future leaders of a modern Pakistan. I want to talk a bit about this, and I think the whole sort of the presentation is sort of talking about how are we trying to achieve this vision. So first of all, it's sort of different from a lot of other schools and other foundations which are doing really remarkable work. So if you look at TCF, if you look at CARE Foundation, they're absolutely doing fantastic work. But it's in a completely different space. So we are essentially looking at the leadership vacuum, which at least we feel that Pakistan has. So we are not in the numbers game. We are not saying that we can, we don't even aspire to have 50,000 kids in school or 100,000 kids in school. That's not our aspiration. It's a very valid and valuable aspiration for some people, but for us, it's really focusing on a very small segment of the education market, and that's looking at and focusing on what kinds of leaders do we want. So as we think about, I think it's really a time to introspect. what kind of leaders does every one of us want? We can clearly see in every sphere a leadership gap in Pakistan. So what kind of leaders would we want for Pakistan to have? And I think this will, the presentation will really unfold what it means for Maktab to try to develop the next generation of leaders. So the first thing is, we are very proudly, I hope we are not the only one, but that's not how it was supposed to come across. But we are very proud that we are at least a school in Pakistan that runs on honor code. We have been doing it for 3 years now. There are some problems in the honor code, but we try to have conversations around it. So this year, it all started back in COVID. So during COVID, there was this whole thing that how are we going to ensure that exams are done that there is no cheating, and we were very concerned about it, and we thought, and then at some level we let go. We said it's fine, we're going to trust the children and the parents, and we're going to say, here are the rules, take your exams, do them at home, time yourself, and come back and give us the results. And we were quite surprised by what we found, that essentially 99% of the people, or 98% of the people, were not interested in cheating. They actually did the exam roughly according to the expectations of their teachers, and everything happened according to plan. And since then, we have sort of stuck to this idea that and it's just not exams, it's how children are supposed to report problems, how we deal with disciplinary issues. So all of it sort of
We
okay,
can hear
so
you.
let me start out again. Sorry about that. Okay. Great. Sorry about this. So let's just start out, and let me just go back. So this is what I was talking about, that we really do have a sort of like a unique experiment that we are conducting in terms of what kind of self-regulation do. So we start this from grade 4 onwards. So grade 5, 6 onwards, we have, right now we just have tests, which we have take home and unproctored tests. At some point, we'll also start taking exams this way. So it's a slow process that we are going through. What makes us, I mean, I'll talk about the academics, and the academics are extremely important for the next generation of leaders of Pakistan. But all these things that we do, I think are absolutely critical to developing, if done in the right way, in developing the next generation of leadership in Pakistan. And I'll sort of start talking about these things in a bit more detail. But I'd really like to talk about the annual play here. The annual play, while we have regular dramatics and all those things, but the annual play is sort of a carefully curated experience in terms of we'll pick something from literature, and especially Urdu literature. So that's something that's really lacking in Pakistan. I mean, if you look at all the elite schools, we really don't have a sense of cultural belonging. We hope to include Punjabi at some point, but we don't have it right now. But if you look at the last 3 annual Urdu plays, again, we have one this year. So we had Manto's Insaf, so that's a political satire. Then we had Anjam Bakhair, that's by Patras. And now we have again Ghalib, that's again by Manto. Now, the thing is not just the choice of plays, but we sort of ensure that all the children get some parts in the play. They actually get to speak. So our drama is not of very high quality. It's true of all the activities that we do. So be it sports, any musical event that we have, any annual play that we have, it's participation of all. We're not really interested in the excellence of the few. We don't want to stop people from excelling, but we really want a Maktab graduate to have experienced the joy of dramatics, of representing their house in inter-house competitions, and of producing some kind of music that they enjoy. So that's sort of a very integral part of the school, that it's supposed to be a very small, cohesive body in which children are really encouraged to experience all the different facets of life. So, if you think about it, why do we have all these things which are so integrally incorporated into daily school life? Again, it boils down to the basic same idea, that what kind of leaders do we wish to have in Pakistan? So, and again, one of the major things that are missing, I think, from schools these days is sports has essentially disappeared. Maybe HSN is one of the few places that still has it, but it's such a small segment of the population. I don't know of other schools that even have the facilities that kids can play sports. Again, our music is very much focused on Pakistan's cultural heritage. So the kids will either learn to play the tabla or the harmonium before they graduate. And they also get to use their Urdu curriculum. So the poetry will be from Faiz or Iqbal or Jalib, that they get to instrumentally accompany those songs. So again, and the library is such a critical part. So all our kids go to the library every day of the week, 4 days a week, not every day of the week, 4 days a week, except Fridays, the kids will be going to the library. So it's a small school, maybe designed for maybe a few hundred kids, 300 kids, and we have a 10,000 book library. And it's crazy because this experiment of the library, of sending kids to the library every day, has been remarkably successful. So when, for example, the library has to close down for some renovation or stock taking, the children actually show their unhappiness. They come and they say, why is the library closed? Why are we not getting our library period? And that has been, an interesting experiment of the last few years, that we have found that if you really allow the children the variety and the kind of books that they would enjoy reading, then they actually do enjoy reading. It's not that they only go onto the tabs and the cell phones. They still can read. It's just that we are not providing them with enough opportunities to read. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the humanities curriculum that we have. Again, it's been a struggle, especially with Urdu literature, because we have no precedents. At least we don't know of any precedents. In English, it's very easy. You go and you look at a top school in New York or Boston, and you can just get what they're doing in English literature and modify it to some extent for local with a 13 or a 14-year-old. But apart from that, you can essentially take a lot of what they're doing and just use it directly in your schools, because there is no precedence. The kinds of books that we have that are published locally, they just do not cater to children. The quality of literature that these books are exposing them to is so poor that any child would
Should we? We are disconnected again. Irfan sir, we can't see your slides anymore. Neither can we hear you. You're on mute also.
Yeah, I'm just starting again. Sorry. So the I am sharing. I'm just sharing the screen. Hopefully, it should appear sooner or later. Can you see it now?
Sorry, we can.
Can you see the slides now?
Yeah, we can, Doctor.
You can? Okay, great. Okay. Okay. So, so the idea was that we're still experimenting with it, but we're sort of narrowing it down to certain things. Although we'll keep on experimenting, we still have a lot to do, because the kinds of questions that we need to ask around these people, our teachers are still not comfortable. The Urdu is such a backwater place. Are graduating from universities who actually have a passion for Urdu literature. So it's a really a difficult task to teach Urdu literature to children. This is like our middle school curriculum, because the problem is that in grade 10 and 11, we have to follow the O levels curriculum. So we are bound to do whatever O levels asks us to do. But till grade 9, we have a lot of flexibility, our advantage. Again, in social studies, also, there's a huge vacuum in terms of the curriculum, because anything that's available locally is essentially rote learning. There's one story in the book.
It's once up, we can't hear you. Do you think it would help if we switch off our cameras? Yeah, we can't hear them. Even I'm also trying to
learn the story, you regurgitate.
Irfan sir, अब disconnect हो रहे हैं बार-बार. Do you think if we switch off our cameras, it would help? Your slides are visible.
I've switched networks, so let's hope this network is slightly better. There seems to be that network is causing us a lot of headaches. Okay, so I was talking about social studies, and in social studies, again, I mean, we don't have any event. Take an election in Pakistan, even take a local problem. Whether you want to build a road next to Shalimar Gardens, and we don't present alternative viewpoints, we don't discuss different viewpoints, we don't really argue with any facts. It's essentially one story to be learned. And so right now we're just copying from the best international sources that we could find. It's a very unhappy situation to be in, because we are not able to really deal with social studies in a local setting, and that is what we ought to be doing right now.
And so your slides, are you sharing them, or are you?
I was sharing them. Let me check again if they are not being. Sorry, I think I may have missed it. Sorry, it was my mistake. Can you see them now, Ji?
Ji, we can.
I'm sorry. I'm extremely sorry about that.
A soft reminder, Irfan sir, you might have like 10 minutes more, 15
yeah,
minutes.
Sure, absolutely. I just have a couple of more slides and I'm done.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, so the science curriculum, again, it's been relatively easier because, again, we can find a lot of things that other people in the world are doing. Although it's still an uphill battle because training local teachers to be able to deal with these kinds of things. I can talk at length about why a lot of people talk about Singapore math, but why Singapore math is not being implemented in schools. We can talk about so the pure mathematics that we do was developed in Russia. So Russian mathematics is world famous, pure mathematics. And we take some of their middle school books and try to teach them to our more gifted students. There are lots of, so it's been, we've looked around for, they're sort of very, we've looked around for different kinds of middle school and high school curricula that make sense to us. And we have tried to patch together a curriculum. So our mathematics curriculum right now, and I think the mathematics, computer science curriculum is in fairly robust shape. The science curriculum is also in reasonable shape, except the problem is that it's virtually impossible to find somebody who can teach this curriculum. So it's been a real uphill battle with science because science is really taught as history. It's not really taught as science in Pakistan. So it's a huge problem finding a science teacher who can deal with the kinds of things that we are trying to do. With mathematics, we have had luck. We have had one teacher that has been with us for now 5 years. So over time, he has learned how to sort of internalize how to teach this mathematics. So just two crazy fun facts, and then I'm just going to stop here. So we sort of enjoy, so we have a lot of fruits and vegetables grown in the school. There's a club that also grows vegetables, student-led club, and children eat and sometimes sell the fruit, not the fruits, but the vegetables. The fruits are eaten freely. So we have lots of fruit trees. Children are encouraged to go and pluck the fruits and eat them from the trees. The vegetables, the gardening club grows the vegetables, and sometimes they share the vegetables and sometimes they sell them because they need some seeds and fertilizers for their vegetable club. And the other really crazy thing that we have done is that the entire MAKTAB website is bilingual. So it was a huge amount of work to convert our website into Urdu. It's really a labor of love. There's no other way to explain it. There was no reason for it. It was just that I could not imagine an academic institution in Pakistan who would not have a website in Urdu. It just seems wrong. You don't have a website in your national language. So we went ahead and did that. Again, it was kind of fun. We learned a lot of things, how to talk about mathematics in Urdu. I didn't know how to do that. So we had to learn about it as we went along. So this is the entire vision. I just stated the first line when I started out, but that's really what we are aiming for. I mean, for us, the cultural heritage, being economically vibrant, the environmental responsibility and social justice is all a critical part of what at least we would like our future leaders of Pakistan to be. And with that, I think, oh, just one last slide, sorry. And this is about, so we have done these experiments, we have been doing all these things. So we have three major challenges that we face right now. A major problem is human resource. I've alluded to it, and that's such a significant one that I cannot emphasize it. It's almost impossible to find a university graduate who sort of understands. I'm not talking about teaching. I'm talking about subject material. So I would like a mathematics person to know pure mathematics. I would like a physics person to know physics. I would like an Urdu literature person to know Urdu literature, or an English literature person to know English literature. That seems obvious, and it seems it should not be hard. It is one of the hardest things in the world to do. We've had some success. We are still struggling with this. And then the second thing is financial, because the few people that you can actually find are very hard to attract and to retain. So that's another major issue that we face, because the dearth of well-trained people is so significant in Pakistan that it's just impossible to first attract somebody like this to teaching, and then to keep them interested in teaching. So that's a huge, that's a clearly a financial issue that we have to address. And the third challenge is communication. We've really not communicated well with either the student body, the academic body in general, the parent body, Lahore at large. So Maktab, in some sense, is a real communications failure, that we have not really communicated well what we are trying to do at Maktab. And that is something, so in all these three areas, we are trying to address these challenges. And that's what in the next 1 or 2 years, hopefully they are on our agenda, and we should be trying to deal with these issues. So with this, I think I'm going to stop, and I will stop sharing the slides.
I think it's great to see this last, to see Maktab also in the pictures. And also this is a fascinating story of a school which is really trying to make a difference. So there are other questions in the chat, Irfan sir, but I would really like to begin by, while other people are thinking about their own questions, I would like to ask, you said this is the school for leaders. My question to you is, what kind of leadership qualities are you looking for in your students? And there is another question. I was just wondering, are there any specific pedagogical skills also that you're looking for in your teachers? Because it might be the same curriculum, but it's about how it is taught that might make a lot of difference. There are loads of questions coming in. Over to you, Irfan Saab, and I'll pick questions, and at times I'll invite people to ask the questions. Ji, Irfan Saab.
Thank you for the question. At least जो मेरे लिए the most important quality of a leader would be, I think, in some sense, I think, okay, so there are multiple things that seem to be important, and the vision sort of stated it in some way, which was, if I were to talk about it, first of all, they have to be ethical without ethics, because a leader is sort of, is not who can, he is somebody who can, or she is somebody who can make the rules. So really you have to be bound, there has to be some kind of a self-discipline in a leader, which is absolutely important. And then I feel that we as leaders need to, because leaders are only respected if they sort of have the ability to I mean, they have to show that they can actually deliver the goods. I mean, you can become the chairman or the dean or the governor or whatever it is that you're going to be the leader of, or the leader of a hospital or any other place. But leadership is not something that's bestowed. It's sort of like you have to earn the respect of people around you. And the only way you can do so is by being brutally honest, not in just, I mean, I don't want to get into the आजकल की जो debate है, but in terms of academic honesty, in terms of being aware of your own weaknesses, I mean, all these things I think would be critical for a teacher, for a leader, and also a lot of our current leadership is being trained in a way that we are really ignoring a large, essentially Pakistan. So if you look at our schools, Urdu and Punjabi is nowhere to be seen. So I'm talking about the elite schools who are supposedly training the elite of Pakistan, who will go on to become either CEOs or academic leaders or political leaders. So they are not aware of their music, their literature. I mean, so all these things I think would sort of make would be critically important in a leader. And obviously environmental problems that Pakistan faces. I think that's another huge issue that all leaders have to be critically sensitive to. In terms of the pedagogical skills,
sorry for interrupting. There was an interesting comment over here, and I think it merited some you to address it. So Wasim over here is asking this question that usually when we are thinking of schooling, we are thinking of preparing people for people who can participate in society and we are members of society, as you know. So isn't there a preparation of leaders an elitist agenda? This is a question.
That's a great question. I think again, we have two. So actually, in how should I say it? In a just society, everybody should be a leader. That's the reality, right? I mean, you're not. I mean, I have a lot of anarchist tendencies in me, and agar aap, if you could look back at Spain, 1936, George Orwell. So I mean, if you look at all those things, I completely agree with what Wasim Saab is saying. But the problem is that we live in a world that is extremely imperfect, and we live in it now. So there are two options. One option is that if you want, I mean, one option is to take the route that जो है, a lot of the NGOs are taking, and that's a valid way to deal with it. The other route is that you are trying to create the kind of environment that if these leaders were to go back into the society, they will hopefully go ahead and develop the rules and really create the conditions necessary for what Wasim Saab is saying. So it would be sort of a two-tiered approach. So I think we all agree with the end goal, but this is sort of like a two-tiered approach to how to get there. I don't know of an other way to get there for an individual. I think at the government level, they could certainly make 100,000 maktabs decide to reduce expenditure on other things that they do, build 100,000 maktabs, and that would transform the landscape. But given limitations of resources, that is the best that's all that I could do as an individual. But that's a great question.
Oh, thank you very much. There are questions around the finding Mehek question. There's a question by Mehek, and she's asking, what are the challenges in terms of Mehek, could you please ask your question? It's slightly complicated over here, I think. Mehek Fatma,
Sure, yes, I'm here.
please
I'm
go
here.
ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. So my question is, as you already have mentioned that there are, and it makes sense, doing innovative work, there are challenges in acquiring certain kind of talent that would aspire the values that Maktab is trying to uphold. I was curious to know that do you have any opportunities for professional development or teacher training education planned if something has already been implemented, or if not, then what does that look like?
Okay. So again, an excellent question. So we are at a very, how should we say it? We are trying to deal with so in engineering terms, we are trying to deal with the first bottleneck in some sense. So the first bottleneck for us is knowledge. The knowledge base is a huge issue for us. And you're talking about professional development, which is extremely important, but we haven't even solved the first problem, which I think with the first problem actually is how do we find people or how do we train people who, for example, know and sort of also love how to do a proof in Euclidean geometry. We have struggled a huge deal with this problem. So, abhi tak Maktab in terms of professional development has really lagged. So we do a lot of training in the summers, but it is essentially like trying to teach the teachers what they ought to have learned in college. So that's the abhi tak. So it's not professional development per se. It's more like technical development. If you want to teach Urdu literature, read these books. Here are some questions. We want to see answers. We want to critique the answers. We want you to sort of get to the point where you can actually sort of meaningfully, in some sense, engage with the subject. So, abhi hamara, I mean, we aren't at that stage. We hope to get to that stage at some level, but we are really not at that stage that we can deal with issues of professional development. So we have not so our focus has really been on technical development of the teachers.
Thank you so much. Mahvesh has a question, and then Anika, and then Tubasi.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Irfan, my question is that with the alternate and experimental nature of Maktab, parts of your journey, parts of the school's journey are bound to be messy. And I believe that a very important role is also played by the parents of the students who study at Maktab. So in your opinion, what is a non-negotiable aspect of the parents' disposition for the school's philosophy to work? Because a lot of times that serves as a bottleneck that you can't get past that. So what is essential in terms of the parents' disposition? Thank you.
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's like there are bound to be some clashes between what parents believe and what the school believes. So what would be a red line for Maktab? Is that the question?
No, let me simplify it.
Yeah,
So yani the parents who send their children, what must they come with in order for Maktab's philosophy to work, right? Taki wo clash ya red line nahi, but what quality must the parents also have so their expectations are aligned? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. So there's where ideals and realities the realities really kill the ideals. So so at the moment, I mean, so I can talk about what we would like and what we have. They're two sort of very different things. So what we have right now are in general, and that's the communication failure that I was talking about, are parents who mostly, not all of them, but mostly who feel that, I mean, they don't really buy into the Maktab philosophy. what they find is that they're comparing Maktab to a small Koti school around in their neighborhood. And since the fees are maybe comparable, it could even be a Beacon House or a city school, which is right next to them. And since the fee structure is comparable, not that different, they may find, okay, we'll send them here because we have a lot more physical facilities as compared to these schools. So there's not a lot of vision alignment in terms of the parents. Now we have started, and this is like this year, we have started sort of, I mean, it's something in the progress, but we have started this idea of communicating our vision with the parents. Now, what kind of qualities would we like in the parents? I think fundamentally, if I were to, I think two qualities would sort of decide whether I think the kids would be aligned with Maktab's vision. I would ask what kinds of books the parents read and how much time they spend with their kids. I mean, if essentially there's, I mean, if these two qualities, if the family has these two qualities, I think there's going to be a lot of alignment with what Maktab is trying to accomplish.
Thank you so much. There is a question, Anika. Would you like to ask the question yourself?
Okay,
Anika?
can you hear me, ma'am?
Gigi, we can.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presentation. It was wonderful to see a school working in Pakistan on a unique education model. I wanted to ask, what is the number of students in your school and what is the student-teacher ratio in the school? And the second question is related to assessments. What kind of assessments are being conducted? Are they formative, are they summative, or a mix of both, over which the honor code is being conducted?
Thank you. So there are about 140 students right now in Maktab at the moment. And there are about 26 or 5 teachers right now. So that's can work out the student-teacher ratio. It's about 1 to 5 or 6, maybe something like this, but it includes the part-time teachers. So maybe it's a bit more, but on average, we have very small classes. And that's, I mean, we are comfortable with classes up to a size of about 20 or 21, but our average class size right now is maybe 10 or 12, somewhere on that order. Now, in terms of assessments, it really depends on, I think, again, so it's going to be a mixture of the two. There are certain courses in which summative assessment would not make a lot of sense. So for example, if you have a Euclidean geometry course, a lot of it is based on, so it's more like a seminar style course, which is in terms of assessment, essentially you are communicating a lot with each other and with your teacher. So there's a lot of oral communication, you're presenting proofs, you're critiquing proofs. So in that kind of a situation, a summative assessment may or may not make sense. So then a formative assessment would be a lot more applicable. In certain cases, if you're doing something very regular, then there's obviously going to be some formative and some summative assessment. In terms of the honor code, when you have a seminar style course, then the honor code becomes essentially irrelevant because you're really talking so much to the students that there's no chance of actually cheating or copying. The only, in more regular courses, that's where the honor code comes into play, and that we implement across the school from grade 5 onwards.
Thank you so much. Rahma, would you like to go next? Rahma?
Yes, I'd like to ask. So my question is pertaining to the early years section. First of all, I'd like to ask, do you have an early years section in your school, which essentially means something for 3 to 5 years old?
Yeah.
And secondly,
Yeah,
if you do, then which curriculum do you follow there? I'm interested in knowing, like, is there a particular name to the
Yeah.
curriculum, like
Okay.
the
So,
Maria
so I should have had my wife here as well. She deals with a lot of this stuff, but what I know of is um, so again, there's been a lot of experiments that we did. And so we started out, we didn't know exactly what we wanted. In Pakistan, there was a lot of emphasis on uh, teaching numeracy, literacy, that there's a huge focus on that. We've tried to move away from it somewhat. And what we've tried to do is we found these really, at least they seem a very humane kind of a very um, they seem to be very interactive and very emotionally intelligent lesson plans by the University of Mississippi. And they have their lab school, and we found very detailed information from there. So we have sort of essentially tried to copy that by adding some Urdu into it. So I don't know a lot about it. That's the best that I can answer. I'm sorry, I'm not very familiar with the details.
Thank you so much. Ramsha Khan has asked the question about teachers. Ramsha, would you like to ask the question yourself?
Yes. Hello, sir. I'm really glad to be here and listen to your insights about your school. I wanted to know that how do you recruit your teachers? Is there any general specific criteria for recruitment of teachers?
So now we have come to the, so we, we have a very a simple criteria. I think so. There's first a subject test. We are now very adamant that we don't want people in the school who don't know their subject. So that's the first thing. So we'll actually just have a technical test. So if somebody is applying for English literature, we will have an English literature exam or an Urdu literature exam or whatever it is that you are applying for. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that we do is we're very comfortable with raw teachers, and we've had very good luck with raw teachers, especially in the older years. Like I think we found that experience matters a huge deal in the early years, but as at least our experience has said that as you go along, the subject matter and the really the passion for your subject becomes significantly more important than anything else. So what we have is we have an exam. We then have we ask you for a written essay. There's a small essay that we ask you to write, and it's sort of a more introspective essay, and we evaluate that, and then we have an interview and a demo, and then we decide based on all of these inputs.
So Irfan, are we saying, are we thinking of some qualification in terms of at least a bachelor's or a master's?
Sure, absolutely. A 16-year education is sort of like a given fact.
All right. So there's Mahvish Zafar. I think we can take this one last question. Mahvish?
My question was, thank you, ma'am. My question was, Irfan, that do you think the single national curriculum is conducive to nurturing leadership? Because that's the area that you work in. What is your assessment?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So I think you have asked a very complex question. So my take on the single national curriculum is that had it been like the other curricula that have been implemented in Pakistan, essentially that, if they had left Maktab alone and they had implemented, the curricula have been I mean, they have not really catered to a school like Maktab ever. So if you look back at the curriculum, I mean, they were, okay, so if you look back at the curricula that the Punjab government had maybe before the single national curriculum, it was not something we followed. We just ignored it and we did whatever we wanted to do. And that was fine. It worked out fine for us. The problem with the single national curriculum was that there was this urgency that they were going to go around and start implementing it actually. I mean, so clearly there was a lot more religion in the curriculum, and that was clearly problematic. I mean, Urdu and English books clearly had far more Islamia than they needed to have. Similarly, mathematics was way too overcrowded. It didn't make sense to have what they had. And if they'd gone ahead with the plans of social studies, जो उनकी grade 6, 7, 8 की थी, so that was pure indoctrination. I mean, but I mean, we have to be clear that indoctrination is increasing. The indoctrination was always there. I mean, you can never question the standards, the standard story told by the state. The only thing was that this time the state became active and actually started policing what was being taught in even experimental schools like ours. And that, I think, made us really scared. Had the Shehbaz Sharif government or the previous PMLN government done the same thing, we would have also been extremely unhappy because neither of the curricula deal with a school like Maktab. But for the general population, I think it was in general a regressive step, the single national curriculum in general for especially the state schools. In general, I think it was a regressive step, although there were certain cases in which there were marginal improvements. That's my take on the essence.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Irfan Chaudhary. What a fascinating idea and what fascinating work. It really is drawing our attention to things like, I mean, Urdu literature, ideas that we have been so much, what do you say, moved into this Western forms of education that we have almost lost touch with who we are. So all the way best for your endeavor. Can we possibly request all the participants to switch on their cameras so that we can take a photograph with Dr. Irfan Chaudhary, just to remember this wonderful session.
खुद तो मैं वो इतनी अच्छी लग रही है, हम इतने कोजे लग रहे हैं.
What is this? Okay. Okay, those who want to, I think it would be great so that we can sort of keep this memory with us. Thank you very much. And I'm just waiting for the cameras to be on so that I can take a picture and maybe Temur can help us. Okay.
Take a picture, but like in सब जो है ना पहले videos on कर लें. Please try not to write in the chat box क्योंकि जो है ना वो फिर मेरे पास message pop up हो जाएगा.
ठीक है जी. आप भी उतार लीजिएगा, ले लीजिएगा screenshot. Thank you so much. One more. We try to change. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. Great to see you. Thank you so much, Dr. Irfan Chaudhary.
Thank you.
For this very memorable.
Pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Hafiz.
एक मिनट, सॉरी, एक just have a seat. असल में मैंने अटेंड करना था.
You were in this last session.
Yes. आपको कैसे पता चला?
Because when the physics department.
ठीक है जी.
We send post multiple times of this session.